Okay, 127 hours, or of course 5 days and 3 hours. This is the movie that's primarily starring James Franco. There are other people involved too, but they have kind of minor parts. Where he's kind of a, I guess they still use the term canyoneer. So he's kind of someone who likes to go out and explore, you know, canyons, caves, those sorts of things. And he decides to go out on one of these, kind of like, sort of like weekend adventures. He runs into these two girls who are lost. He helps them, find their way through. And that's like the first about like 20 minutes of this movie is, a little bit of his background as well as him meeting these two girls. I take him to this phenomenal like underground lake. And then as he departs from them, they invite him to a party. He's like, yeah, I'll make it. He keeps on going. He finds a spot where he thinks he has pretty sure footing, but the rock that he goes across breaks loose. So now he is stuck. The rock has got one of his hands pinned against a wall inside the cave. And that's essentially where he spends approximately about the next 5 days. He tries to do kind of like a pulley system to try to get the rock to move. He tries to just power the rock. He also tries to chip away at the rock using a really cheap generic multi-tool. And the whole time this is going on, he's having, like dreams and essentially nightmares, like mild hallucinations. And he's also making recordings. Because he's under the impression that, he's pretty much going to die where he's at. It's not until he realizes he only has one option. He's going to have to cut his arm off. And that scene is done every bit as brutally as you would expect somebody having to sever their own limb while pinned with having a dull blade. It's not done in any way, shape, or form glamorous look at all. This is actually fairly grisly and fairly brutal. If you don't think James Franco can act, and if you've seen most of his work, like Pineapple Express and stuff of that ilk, you probably don't think he's actually a really solid actor. And this is pretty much him for the bulk of, an hour out of this hour and a half. He is having the kind of like flashbacks, and he's trying to sort out his life and stuff like that. But primarily, it's him. This is almost kind of like James Franco's version of Ryan Reynolds in Buried. But there's other people involved, and of course, based on a true story, we all kind of know that, of course, he is going to survive. But it's primarily the idea of he's trying to do anything he can think of to get himself free from the situation. So it's kind of that how far could you push yourself? Could you actually do this sort of thing? And my first thought was, being someone who is not at all an avid outdoorsman, by any stretch of the imagination. I have a relative who likes to go out and do this. He loves to go out and do that, the ice climbing, where it's the, cut a hole, stick your hand in, make a fist, and climb up. He normally goes out with a buddy. Because ever since this story happened, all of his friends try to do these things, at least in tandem, or at least they know, I'm going to be here, here's what I'm planning on doing, I'm going to give you a phone call every now and then, keep in touch sort of thing. And of course when it's done, they actually show the person based off of Aaron, and how he actually still does these things. However, he has learned one valuable lesson from this. He always leaves a note to let people know where he's going. So 127 hours, it is a fairly tense movie. Since we already kind of know what's going to happen, there's the anxiety of, okay, so when's he going to get stuck, then followed by, okay, what is he going to do before the inevitable, of course, having to kind of like saw his arm off with the dull blade. So it's a very, very beautifully well done movie. It is James Franco probably putting in one of the best performances you could ever ask from any actor, and that is 127 hours.